Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I hope everybody is safe and well despite the unbelievable conditions in our region. Thank you all for joining us today for our IPI MENA webinar on irregular migration in the Middle East and North Africa region. I would like also to thank our key speaker for today, His Excellency Mr. Moussa Mara, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Mali, as well as our speakers, Ms. Zoe Sakiladiou, Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice Officer on Trafficking in Persons and Migrant Smuggling at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC Vienna. My friend and Mr. Abdel Basit bin Hassan, President of the Arab Institute for Human Rights based in Tunisia. As many of you know, this is our second webinar on this theme, and following our first one in June, we have listened to your comments and feedback, and have organized this as the second in our series on this important theme. Firstly, I think we should stress the importance of terming it irregular migration. I'm aware that the definition has been the subject of much debate, and various terms have different connotations in national policy debates. It is vital, however, that we avoid the term illegal migration, as most irregular migrants are not criminals. Not having the required papers in most countries is an administrative infringement and not a criminal offense. The United Nations refers to irregular migration as so does the European Union, and so does the Council of Europe. They differentiate between illegal migration and irregular migrant, in which illegal is used to refer to a status of process and irregular when referring to a person. Irregular border crossing entails the skipping of a process that breaks down the connection between individual and state. This generates a category of people who are unknown to the state, and this has several implications. The most important being vulnerability for the irregular migrant. This migrant lives without the protection of the state and without the recognition and identity documentation. They fall into the informal economy where exploitative practices can unfortunately take place. Each and every act of exploitation must be documented with the purpose of bringing those responsible perpetrators to or parties or groups to justice. We are at IPI MENA full of hope that you'll all join us in calling on all international organizations, NGOs, global law organizations, and other relevant stakeholders to work together to better equip these migrants against their abusers, to better create resilient communities that can work in tandem with preventive dimensions of executive and judicial organizations to end the intolerable violation of all sorts of human rights the irregular migrants are subjected to. With this in mind, I look forward to hearing from our speakers on this very important topic. But before I give the floor to our IPI MENA colleague Anuja Jaiswal to provide introductory remarks, just a reminder to our audience, once we open the floor for questions and answers, please either raise your hand or use the virtual hand with the relevant icon. Put your question in the chat or physically raise your hand, as we said, and we will take note of that. Anuja, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nejib, and thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. I echo the call to end the intolerable violations against migrants. As we know, migrants and refugees trying to reach Europe continually embark on dangerous journeys. News of capsized migrant boats frequently makes headlines. Earlier this year, the Messenia boat disaster resulted in over 500 migrants being presumed dead after a fishing trawler sunk off the coast of Pylos, Greece. Smugglers and traffickers exploit the vulnerability of migrants, facilitating their journeys in perilous conditions. But headlines often only capture one tragic part of migrants' journeys, overlooking earlier incidents. One of the key interventions with this webinar is to take a more holistic and human rights-based approach to migration by looking closely at the treatment of migrants in countries of origin, transit, and destination. We need to highlight the legal tools available to advocate for migrants. Human trafficking and migrant smuggling are distinct crimes. Human trafficking entails luring a victim into a system of exploitation, whilst migrant smuggling refers to helping someone illegally cross a border for a profit. However, when it comes to irregular migration, these acts are often mixed in streams, and that makes it more difficult to identify and punish offenders. Accordingly, measures to combat irregular migration must acknowledge how vulnerable migrants are to abuse. We hope that by evaluating the legal tools available, we can build an understanding of how to apply them to complex realities. We also want to highlight the impact of cross-border partnerships. Destination countries sometimes sign agreements with common transit countries to curb the flow of irregular migrants. Unfortunately, recent reports reveal that such deals can result in widespread human rights violations. For example, Libya is a common transit country for irregular migration and works with destination countries in the European Union on this issue. The UN fact-finding mission on Libya earlier this year found reasonable grounds to believe that migrants across the country suffer crimes against humanity and are subject to many human rights abuses in arbitrary detention. More recently, European Union leaders signed a strategic partnership with the Tunisian government aiming to combat undocumented immigration. Many rights groups and rescue missions condemned the partnership, highlighting the consequences of similar agreements in the past and the current treatment of Black migrants in Tunisia. Now, clearly, a solely preventative approach to irregular migration only makes migrants more vulnerable to human rights abuses. It also overlooks their frequent victimization in trafficking and smuggling networks. The transnational nature of this crime challenges conventional justice mechanisms, and it makes international cooperation at every level necessary. Ultimately, as Nejib said, everyone responsible for abuses against migrants must be held accountable. I hope that the conversation we have today will help us achieve that goal. As such, I look forward to hearing from our speakers and learning from their experience and expertise on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anuja, for this insightful introductory remarks statement. I will now give the floor to our key speaker, His Excellency Mr. Moussa Mara, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Mali. Your Excellency, you have the floor. Sorry, we don't have the Mr. Moussa Mara on camera for technical reasons, but Dalia, here is his photo.
Yes, thank you, dear friend Nejib, and thank you all of you to having me on this important discussion about something which will structure the international relationship, I am sure, in the next coming years or decades, because it is one of the main issues we'll face in the coming years. And I would like to thank you for this this invitation, and to say the first thing is, I am our country, we have a huge problem of energy, and we have a power cut, frequently power cut. It is possible during my lecture that we will have some little problem about that, and I launch my generator, but I don't know exactly what will happen on the next coming minutes. I hope the situation will let me maybe 10 minutes to make the lecture. The second thing is I am not a lawyer and I am not a specialist of international law about an international rules about migration, legal migration, management of migration. I will talk as a citizen of a country which is commonly written as a departure country of departures. And I will talk about what I know about that, and maybe some few things about the country of transit or the country of destination. I would like to start by one big understanding. I think all of us here, we understand that migration is a big concern in Europe and Western countries. It's a big fear. Migration drives a fear of invasion, a fear of what we call a big replacement, the replacement of European people by African one or Asian one. It is a fear, and it is a real fear, and I think it is understandable to notice that, and we have to understand that, and especially we coming from Africa or the departure regions, the fear is understandable. At the same time, I would like to emphasize on nobody will leave his own town happy and with happiness. The migration is like an obligation in somehow. It's like compulsory for some people in our side. We have to understand that. The two understanding are very important. The understanding of the fear migration could constitute for European countries and European people, and the understanding that it will be simply impossible to try to stop migration, because the context of our countries as a departure countries is likely to force people to go out. They will not go out happily. They will go out somehow only to try to live, These two understanding must be retained by all of us, and especially by the Western countries and the European countries. If I take the example of my country and the Sahel region, we are losing maybe 70 or more than 70% of our forests due to the impact of climate change. Mali has lost 70% of its own forests. That means 70% of natural resources, a lot of productive lands ready for agriculture, for farming. A lot of land are being unproductive due to the impact of climate change. At the same time, we see the population growing fastly. Our demography is growing maybe for 4 or 5% every year. The combining of growing population and reducing natural resources create a sort of scissors effect on our economy. This is a scissor effect. We are being cut by this scissor effect. That force a lot of part of our people to try to go out on our neighbor and to go out maybe far from our countries to to try to find themselves. This is something we have to consider, and it will not be changed on the coming years. That's why, for me, we have to understand this reality. And then it is mandatory for the departure countries, transit countries, and for sure the destination country to work together. And we are not facing that. We are observing a tempting from a European country to go silently, to come silently, to try to get agreement with country one by one. That will not function. That will not work. We need to establish, to sit down around the table, all of us, country departures, country transit, and country of destination, to tell the truth, really, about the situation, and to convince about the situation, what each of us has to do singularly. I think it is absolutely necessary. That's why, for me, the first thing is convening. It is a global concern that need a global solution. Second, sit down, tell the truth among us, convince about the reality all of us are living, and discuss about what could be the solution. After that, I think the next step could be to ease the legal migration ways. We have to open the legal migration routes more largely than what we are facing. We need more legal migrants. We need more legal cooperation on migration, and we know, based to that, migration is positive. Strategically, migration is positive, and especially for the country which receive migrants. And we have, based on this argument, to ease the legal migration ways and the legal migration routes. The third one, and I will finish by that, is to fight all of us against traffickers, the traffickers, and the smugglers. Things, but this is true. Migration, we have to fight seriously against that. And this will necessitate effort inside our countries, because we know in our administration, public administration, there are some people who use their power to give the document to ease the illegal migration. We have to fight against that, and we have to do our job, the departure countries, on that. And I think enough means must be retained for that. We need to use the intelligence services. We need to use the new technologies. We need to use all means against the smugglers, the mafias, the traffickers, a lot of people who lives on the illegal migration, and who are drinking the blood of the migrants. They are drinking the blood of the migrant. We need to fight against that, and we need to fight seriously against them. I am totally agree with that, and I think the country of departure do not do everything they can do on that. They are maybe a little bit passive, and they need to be more active on that, and they need to take part to this fight. This is something I agree with that. That is the main part of my intervention. The 10 minutes is now reached. I am hoping to take the floor on the next time in order to maybe to answer some question you will need eventually to pose. Thank you, Nejib, and thank you all of us to having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for this important presentation. Of course, we are alarmed by the fact that 70% of your country's natural resources were lost to climate change, which is one of the causes of the migration towards the north. And in addition to that, you presented the other alarming element, which is the demographic growth, which is by 5%, which is very, very high. And sorry for this graphic scissor effect. And then another graphic also element, which is the traffickers, the smugglers that you qualified as the drinking the blood of the country and the migrants. Maybe later you can enlighten us, Mr. Prime Minister, following the following statements on how you think some elements should be put on the table of all stakeholders, and the three steps, which are the countries of origin, the transit countries, and the countries of destination, on how to work together against particularly those smugglers, those traffickers, and as you call the mafia and the organized crime organizations. So we look forward to you getting back to that, and maybe also answering some of the questions from the speakers and the audience. I now go to back to Ms. Zoe Sakiradiou, Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice Officer on Trafficking in Person and Migrant Smuggling at the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. I would like to thank the International Peace Institute for the honoring invitation. I'm very glad to be part of such a distinguished panel of speakers. My name is Zoe Sakiradiou, and I am working in the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime at the Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling section. We are guardians of the two protocols of the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crime. The two protocols are the protocol against smuggling of migrants and the protocol against trafficking in persons. UNODC is also part of the executive committee of the United Nations Migration Network, a new structure that was put in place to showcase the increased interest of the organization on the issue of migration. And UNODC, together with IOM, are co-leading the work stream on smuggling of migrants and trafficking in persons. I will talk to you today a little bit about the protocol on smuggling of migrants, the data of UNODC on migrant smuggling, and share with you some of the challenges that lie ahead of us. Unfortunately, testimonies of migrants suffering violence, torture, and abuse are not uncommon. Migrants often lose their lives during their journeys. A UNODC study revealed that smuggled migrants are often subjected to extreme violence, torture, and rape. In absence of alternatives, people often have no choice but to reach to smugglers and risk their lives. The current global environment is one of turmoil, I'm afraid. And unfortunately, crime thrives where and when the rule of law and stability are absent. Armed conflict, environmental disasters, climate change, poverty are all factors that contribute to making people leave their homes and making them more vulnerable to networks of smugglers and traffickers. Smuggling of migrants is a serious crime that involves facilitating irregular entry or stay of someone who does not have a right in another country for profit. Migrant smuggling is a form of organized crime, and information gathered by UNODC looking at transregional routes has found increasing links between migrant smuggling and other forms of crime, such as drug trafficking. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I would like to make a clarification. Migration is no crime, but smuggling of migrants is. And we have tools to fight this crime. We have the protocols on trafficking in persons and the protocols on the smuggling of migrants. They have reached almost universal ratification, and this speaks volumes to the international community's interest into looking into these aspects. They were the first instruments to criminalize all forms of human trafficking, and for the first time, the smuggling of migrants. The smuggling of migrants protocol also states that migrants must not be prosecuted for being the object of the crime. And it underscores also the need to treat them humanely, with full protection of human rights, and to provide appropriate assistance, especially when their lives or safety are endangered. This is one of the three objectives, stated objectives of the protocol that should not be forgotten. And for over 20 years, UNODC supports countries to implement the protocols and to meet the legal requirements that have undertaken by being part of this legal instrument. We offer assistance to draft legislation, policies, and strategies. We train law enforcers, prosecutors, judges to prevent these crimes and bring perpetrators to justice. We are also a source of expertise and knowledge. We undertake research and studies, and we develop tools for training and helping professionals on policy reform. Globally, in the last year, in 2022 alone, we were active in more than 60 countries worldwide, and we trained approximately 5,000 professionals. But we have a lot of work that still needs to be done. We need to study the movements of the smugglers and strengthen cooperation along smuggling routes. Our data shows that the Global South is under severe pressure, severe migratory pressure, severe climate pressure, severe poverty. And we need to promote South-South cooperation in order to address effectively migrant smuggling. Our data shows that smugglers link with other criminals and that corruption is present in all smuggling routes. There is a need for more international cooperation, exchange of information, and judicial cooperation. There is also, and allow me to stress that, an imperative need to talk to the migrants, to listen to them and to their stories. Migrants that have suffered in the hands of smugglers are entitled to assistance and protection. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, interagency cooperation is also key. Anti-migrant smuggling authorities need to work alongside other specialized organized crime departments who investigate cases on drug trafficking, corruption, and money laundering. We should not forget that smugglers are in this business because of the high profits and the relatively low risk of being detected by the authorities. UNODC recently launched a new study on the illicit financial flows from the smuggling of migrants. We also see that smugglers exploit the digital world to the maximum. They advertise their services through social media, using mobile applications to transfer profits and to connect with other groups of crime. This makes it harder for law enforcement to trace and intercept their activities. And we need to ensure that law enforcement has the same or even better level of digital expertise as the criminals. Migrant smugglers follow vast routes. There is no country in the world that is immune to this crime. And we need to follow a whole of the route approach. Crossing a border without the appropriate documents is only one small part of the story. We need to go deeper and see the parts of the chain that bring people to crossing borders without the proper requirements. And to do this, we need closer regional and also trans-regional cooperation. Another challenge that we're faced with is that we need to address corruption. Our data shows that there is corruption in almost all migrant routes used worldwide. In some cases, smugglers have contacts with corrupt officials in embassies and consulates at state borders who facilitate the falsification of travel documents or simply turning a blind eye over a checkpoint. We need a better understanding of these two crimes, not only because corruption enables migrant smuggling, but because corruption harms societies as a whole. Torture, rape, sexual violence, murder, and the abandonment of pregnant women, children, elderly migrants are commonplace. We need to ensure that there are procedures and the capacity to screen smuggled migrants, to identify those that have suffered abuses and those that are in need of international protection or that have been trafficked. Officials dealing with complex investigations into migrant smuggling need to be able to recognize signs of abuse, of violence and exploitation that are associated with this crime but are often overlooked. We need to find ways to ensure that the people that need assistance and support have the appropriate referral mechanisms in place in order to find what they need. And at the same time, we need to make sure that such crimes do not go unpunished. And our data shows that, unfortunately, when it comes to migrant smuggling and trafficking in persons, the level of convictions is still very low. And we need to bring those responsible to justice. But in order to do this, there also needs to be a certain political will, but also the means to implement all this. Thank you for listening. I'm going to stop here and make myself available during the questions and answers session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So very, very interesting and very intuitive, and also it adds to the bleak picture. I'm sorry for saying this regarding the whole issue of irregular migration. Thank you for the definitions and differentiation between migrating irregularly and smuggling migrants. And smuggling migrants is a serious crime and a form of organized crime. I'm just rephrasing what you're saying. And you said migration is not a crime, but trafficking them and smuggling migrants is a serious crime. Yes, the transit countries and the countries of destination must treat migrants humanely, but I think we should reinforce that not only at the level of governments, also at the level of parliaments, at the level of laws and regulations. I'm glad that you have trained 5,000 professionals in that regard from the concerned countries, but your call for South-South cooperation is timely, I think. But as you highlighted later, South-South without the North would still be not enough, as you know, the phenomenon of migration covers three forms of countries, as we repeated so many times: the countries of origin, the countries of transit, and the countries of destination. Sad also to know that the impunity is very, very high, and few offenders have been convicted so far. And sometimes we see that some governments in the three parts of the migration are overwhelmed by the traffickers, the smugglers, and the crime organization. Of course, you highlighted the very, very serious and alarming phenomenon of corruption plays in this regard. I hope we can elaborate on that in the future. I'd like now to give the floor to the man who's heading the Arab Human Rights Institute based in Tunis, Dr. Abdelbas bin Hassan. I'm sure you have many elements regarding this ordeal of our friends, the irregular migration on your desk, on your screen, and in your mind. Abdelbas, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, dear Nejib, for having me and giving me the opportunity to address this conference. I totally agree with what had been said by the speakers. I agree with the deep causes of migration. Migration is not a crime. And about all the analysis of the different responsibilities of different actors. I think that there are many ideas, many programs, many strategies implemented by some governments, international organizations, civil society organizations, and also the migrants and refugees communities. There are ideas and there are programs. But I think that what is missing in many cases, what is missing is effective policies with a multi-faceted, multi-levels, multi-actors, community-based policies, national, regional, and international policies. I think that we are suffering in the region from the lack of this kind of partnerships, dialogues, and common responsibilities and shared responsibilities to develop, agree on, and implement these policies. And I think that there is a lack of policies, but at the same time, I think that the vision is, in general, a security-based vision to deal with the issues of migration and the issue of refugees in general. I think that we need to move. Of course, we'll take into consideration all the security issues, but at the same time, I think that we need really to move to a kind of rights-based vision, a rights-based vision that will take into consideration, of course, the security issues, But at the same time, this vision will take into consideration the deep causes and roots of this issue, to go to the countries and try to address the development problems, economic, social, political problems, and also to address the issues of rights-based protection, because refugees need real protection, and also rights-based policies to educate people, because in our countries we need, and also in northern countries, we need education policies to combat hatred speeches, and also all the speeches that consider that migration is a crime. Really, we need to invest in this holistic approach with rights-based approach. Rights-based approach is not at all in contradiction with the security issues. It's not against security issues, but security should not be considered as the only way to address migrants and refugee issues. I think that if we are celebrating next December, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the UN Declaration on Human Rights. And in the second paragraph, we will read that the whole objective of human rights and the whole objective of the international community is to free people from fear and want. And I think that we still addressing migration issue from this perspective, fear and want. And we really need to free people from fear and want by adopting holistic policies based on humanistic approach. And to adopt these policies, I think, and like His Excellency Musa, he really emphasized on trying to ask people, all actors, to sit on the same table and really to discuss these issues and to come up with a kind of dialogue, regional and international dialogue, where all actors should be represented and should really have their say on the elaboration of these regional and international policies to address migrants' issues. I think that this is the my main message, and I think that maybe it's time to really to make human rights a kind of our common space and common way to address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend Abdul Basit, President of the Arab Institute of Human Rights. And I'm not surprised that you focused on the rights-based approach to build effective policies, partnerships, and shared responsibilities between the concerned parties around, or the parties concerned by irregular migration. And I fully agree with you that the security-based vision has proved its inefficiency, despite the fact that security is a need for states and nations. Again, thank you for highlighting the need to have this rights-based approach, combat the speech of the hatred speech and discrimination. Let me wish everybody a happy UN Day, which is today. Maybe it's a belated wish. And as Bassett was saying, I mean, he referred to one of the most important elements of the UN narrative and philosophy and literature, I would say. It is to free people from fear and want. Now, I think we came to the last speaker. I'd like to thank you all, and I will leave now the floor for questions and remarks from our guests.
Good afternoon, Nejib. Thank you, everyone, for this wonderful presentation.
Ms. Doris.
Yeah, I have a question. Doris
Please,
Martin.
Doris,
Yes.
introduce yourself.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Doris Martin. I'm CEO of D. Martin Consultancy and was the founder of Bahrain Mod United Nations and also a board member of Bahrain Businesswomen Society. My question to their excellencies and honorable panelists, thank you for sharing your insights and findings. I found the discussion very, very informative. The question that I'd like to address to the panelists is, based on UN report 2019, Saudi, Germany, and United States has the largest number of immigrants. Turkey has the largest refugees. We all know that. Please explain how is there ongoing high rates in these particular countries? Nothing has changed. It's actually, it's gone, I mean, the rates have gone up. And what have these countries done to address the illegal immigration issue? Thank you. And this is addressed to all.
Thank you. I will open the floor to answers by the speakers who would like to kick off. Yes, Sir Manai. Mr. Darwish Manai, a member of the Shura Council, which is the Senate in Bahrain.
Good evening, everybody from Bahrain. And let me introduce myself. My name is Darwish Manai, ex-member of Bahrain Legislative Authority for the two sessions from 2014 plus 2022, and a businessman. I look at the issue from two factors. The first factor is it is a crime for the smuggling of immigration, and I think there should be sort of a tough legislation set up by the United Nations to prevent such actions. But the second factor, which is very important, I look at it from the human point of view. Now, those who are illegal immigrations are mostly coming from poverty country as well as unemployment, high unemployment rate in those countries. Now, why not the United Nations set up a budget financed by its members according to their GDP, instead of those countries suffering from immigrations, illegal immigrations, setting up a big budget against securities. Now, this budget should be spent on creating factories, farming, fisheries in those countries. I'm sure the irregular immigration will be reduced tremendously, because if we ask ourselves why this irregular immigrations going out, because they are seeking for a better life. Now, if we do create sort of healthy life in their countries, I think we'll reduce it tremendously. And this is my thinking. Anyhow, I do thank the IPI for their webinar, as well as Mr. Nejib Friji, Senior Director, and all the speakers for their valuable, informative speech. And thank you, my dear.
Good initiative. And I think you called on the United Nations. And what is the United Nations? It's us. It's the nations. It's you and me. So maybe the civil society should also push for such initiatives that would encourage investment in the countries of origin in order to better way to prevent not only irregular migration, but other sufferings that these countries are subjected to. Thank you so much, and we will follow up with you on that. I think we will take another 2 questions and then get back to the panelists to answer them. The first question, the second question is from Julia from the Daily Tribune, which is a newspaper in Bahrain. Julia, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Julia.
Okay, great. And also, I'm with the GDN newspaper now in Bahrain, so I'm representing them.
Thank you so much.
So my first question is, what are Gulf countries doing right now to prevent cases of human trafficking? There's a lot of instances of that in particularly Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And what are the source countries where people are being trafficked from to Arab countries, and are there any new ones?
Thank you. Question noted. We will get back to those who are concerned, but I think Zoe has a part of the responsibility there to answer. Now I move to Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Philippines, and J. Lewis.
Thank you very much, and good day, Excellencies, and to the other participants. First of all, thank you to MENA. When I read the invitation and saw the subject, I felt that I should participate because this is, of course, an issue that's very close to the Philippines, and I look forward to hearing opinions and ideas that are raised in this forum. I do not have a particular question, nor do I offer a solution, but I just would like to share some points which I think are very important to consider when we discuss the issue of irregular migration based on the Philippine experience. And first of all, when you say irregular migration, we have to consider the fact that one, for instance, and somebody might leave the country of origin as a regular migrant, but later on becomes an irregular migrant in a particular country. So that means that should be considered, because in terms of coming up with the mechanisms and ways to address the problem, that has to be taken into consideration. The other one is also that the individual might leave the country complying actually with the requirements or the policies of the originating country as a regular migrant, but not complying with the country of destination, or vice versa. So again, that has to be taken into consideration because of the set of measures that one has to develop. The Philippines, of course, has quite an advanced legal framework and systems in place, but that doesn't mean that we do not face challenges because of these realities. And I've agreed with the ideas of the speakers. One mentioned that measures should be community-led. I just would like to share that in the case of the Philippines, we actually work closely down to the grassroots level, and we call them our local government units, the LGUs, the communities where the migrants come from, because we think that the measures, especially the preventive measures, should be done at that level from the grassroots. And we have a lot of programs that are being undertaken. But with regards to addressing this issue, certainly there are so many stakeholders involved. And I am glad that it has been taken up in this seminar, and there are so many agencies and sectors of civil society that are represented here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think we'll stop here. I'll take the other 2 or 3 questions. I would like to call on our speakers. Maybe we start with the key speaker, Her Excellency Musa Mara. Are you
Yes, Nejib, I have some very few words to
Go ahead, please.
to say, and unfortunately, I will have to leave you after my last intervention due to my agenda now. The few word is about our duties inside our countries, and especially the countries of departures. I talked about how it is necessary to work together around the same table and to convince about the issues, and for sure to convince about the duties everyone has to fill. And our duties, I think, is not yet filled because of the lack of political will in our different countries. The common consideration of migration in the countries of departure is migration is a sort of to reduce the pressure of people on leaders and to let them go out and to change their mind about our duties as a leader to provide jobs, our duties as a leader to give services. If we orient them to outside, this is a sort of a short-term solution for the leaders of our countries. We need to face this reality now. Migration is not a solution to give food or to give job to our youth. Migration means now death for our youth. And then we need to tell the truth inside our countries, to say, don't go outside, don't try to cross desert, don't cross ocean, because it is a suicide now. What we all need to do is to stay in the country, to tell the truth among us, to work hard, and to try to find a solution inside the country. I think so far it is not really the case in our countries. This is something we need to do in order to convince our foreign partners we are filling our duties. They have to do their duties. I would like to emphasize on that and to finish my intervention on this very, very interesting panel. And I would like to thank you for sure, dear friend Nejib. I am available for the next time, maybe to talk about this issue and other issues. And I would like to thank the other attender of this important event. Thank you, and see you next time.
See you very soon. We'll certainly get back to you. Now I'll give the floor to Madam Zoe Sakiladiou from UNODC to comment on the previous questions.
Thank you very much. I would like to bring to your attention two things. First of all, our mandate is to be guardians of the protocol on trafficking in persons. And it is the member states, the states parties of this protocol, that are obliged to implement. And we are speaking about intergovernmental processes here. What is the progress on implementation of the protocol? I want to point you to a new development called the review mechanism of the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime and the two protocols. This review mechanism has been discussed amongst member states for more than 14 years. And finally, the states parties agreed to what is known as a peer review mechanism. So a country is examining the extent to which the provisions of the protocols and the convention have been applied, what type of problems exist, And it's a very elaborate system that has been put in place. Generally, we are witnessing delays, and we still wait to see the results of the review mechanism. Us, as UNODC, we are supporting the process. We are functioning as a secretariat, if you wish. Information on the review mechanism is available online. You can see the progress that each country has done in relation to the review mechanism. You can see the peer reviewers, so which countries review which country. And in addition to that, because, as I said, it is an intergovernmental procedure, there was a big discussion on the extent of including the voice of the civil society into this process. And we have agreed, the member states, the state parties have agreed on a process called constructive dialogues. Constructive dialogues bring together governments and civil society organizations, not just organizations providing assistance and support to victims, but faith-based organizations, private sector, any aspect of the civil society that would be interested. Again, information on how to participate in these constructive dialogues that take place in parallel with intergovernmental discussions are available on our website, and it's open to organizations to apply with or without ECOSOC accreditation status. And keep in mind that they take place around, before, or after the so-called working groups on trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants. And it's a great opportunity for the civil society to take part into the discussions that relate to the implementation of the smuggling of migrants and trafficking in persons protocols. Now, if you allow me, I don't know if you would give me 1 more minute or 2, maybe, to speak about data. Data on smuggling of migrants is still a challenge. We need better quality data, and we need more data. And unfortunately, for various reasons, we are still far from that. But we have set up the Smuggling of Migrants Observatory at UNODC, in which you can see information on various routes. We will soon be launching 2 reports that address smuggling of migrants, one for the routes of the Central Mediterranean route and the Western Mediterranean route. And one of the findings we have is that many of the migratory routes that migrants follow from sub-Saharan Africa towards North Africa and the European shores, many of these migrants do not reach the point of even crossing the Sahara Desert, let alone the Mediterranean Sea. Smugglers link with traffickers. Many people end up in artisanal gold mine fields or trafficked for other forms of exploitation. So it is important to keep this also in mind. And then data on trafficking, a general note that for the first time, our global report that is available every 2 years showed a global decline in the number of victims reported. We do not believe that this represents a decline in the actual number of victims, but it had to do with the strains that the COVID-19 pandemic put on national authorities in identifying victims or dismantling criminal networks. But unfortunately, we have seen a decline in the conviction rates, and this gives us reasonable grounds to believe that still impunity prevails. I can provide you with this data should you wish to put on your website.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. This is very important, and I will discuss with you and my colleagues the possibility of taking up this matter in a future opportunity. But also, it's very important you highlighted the vital role of civil society, and I think with you, with Anuja and the Arab Institute of Human Rights, we should focus in our next or future activity on how to mobilize the associations of lawyers, the bar associations, the syndicates, or the gatherings of the judges, or whoever is involved in the legal or law enforcement activities to tackle the matter of human trafficking, migrant smuggling, and crime, organized crime. And thank you so much for enlightening us on that. I will now take the floor, but Zoe, you can get back to us whenever you need. I will take another two questions. First from Tosin Arujolu, you have the floor, and then followed by Abdul Nabi Akri, a human rights activist. Tosin, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been a very, very
Can you introduce yourself, my friend, please?
Yes, sure. My name is Tosin Arojolu. I am a leadership and communications coach and CEO of Leadership Excel Consultancy here in Bahrain. And my question is for the panelists, what is being done for the perpetrators to ensure that this type of illegal immigration does not continue, in terms of how can we ensure that they are rightfully punished in such a way that it deters them from continuing with their activities? Because if they don't find it profitable, they will not continue. However, because they're able to, in some cases, get away with this kind of actions, they find a way to continue. And then my second question is, in terms of raising the awareness of these types of acts to the common people around, so that they can identify victims and therefore report such acts or such victims to authorities, what is being done about that? Thank you very much, and back to you.
Give the floor to Abdul Nabi Akri to put his question. Abdul Nabi, the floor is yours. Abdul Nabi, you are muted. Unmute, please. Abdul Nabi, صوت مقطوع.
Okay now. Thank you, Nejib, a friend. Thank you, Dalia, for all communication, and thanks for Abdul Basit. For years now, we have not seen each other, and we have been in good cooperation, and it is nice to see you, and I hope to communicate. My question is that, okay, there is a very old and, let's say, chronic phenomena of what is called forced immigration. It's not just immigration. And of course, we can give the example of Palestinians who are, for the last, since 1948, that is 75 years, that have been forced. At that time, half of Palestine population, 750,000, have been forced by, of course, Israelis and so on, and under terror, and to leave their own homeland. But they are denied to go back. And of course, now there are 6 million Palestinians. And of course, in the view of the recent developments, which is the war, Israeli war against Gaza, Palestinian Gaza, there is no, it's not just a talk, there is serious or behind arrangement to force 2.3 million Gazans to outside of their also homeland, and this is not secret. So, and of course we have others like Rohingya from Burma to Bangladesh, and we can find another example. So, I mean, this is the most serious aspect of this problem. So what do you think about, I mean, especially that years would go on and it become de facto forced immigration. So what is the responsibility of the UN? What's the responsibility of other stakeholders in addressing such problems, Thank you.
Thank you, Abdinabi, with your always important questions. I will give the floor to Abdul Basit without omitting to say that most of these issues are caused by occupation, and in the eyes of the UN, any form of occupation is illegal and has to end. Abdul Basit?
Thank you very much. I think that in the last decade, the UN system and many international, regional, and national bodies are thinking and rethinking the issue of the futures of education. Myself, I've been member of the International Committee on the Futures of Education, and we published this important report about the futures of education, UNESCO report. The International Work Organization was also developed all this reflection about the futures of work, decent work, the futures of technology, the futures of environment and climate change. I think that we are in a kind of process of thinking about the futures. And all this thinking was based on some values like solidarity, common agenda, humanistic approach, human rights approach, inclusive approach, etc. And I think maybe we need a real reflection, international, multifaceted reflection about the futures of borders and the futures of the right to movement and the right to the free movement and the freedom of movement. I think that we need this reflection, because what is happening really is that we are designing policies without taking into considerations the most important actor, the migrants, the refugees, and also the communities. I think that we need really to redesign our reflection about these issues. The second is about inclusive approaches. I think that, for example, when the EU with the Tunisian government, they designed this memorandum, the last memorandum, many civil society organizations and many refugee communities and migrants communities, they criticized this memorandum because it was not inclusive. And I think that really we need to listen to people, to listen to their problems, to their wishes, and also to the solution they can also develop, because they are living the situation, they are living the hard situation. The third issue is about, I think that my friend Abdul Nabi, who he raised the issue of forced migration. I think that in the case of Palestinian people, I think that, and we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration, I think that in the UN system and the Human Rights International system, it's clear that one of the first values of the international human rights system is about people's rights. And we will find, for example, in the first article of the Pact on Civil and Political Rights, or the first article of the International Pact on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. It's very clear that the first principle is about people's rights. And what is important now, I think, for the Palestinian people, I think that the international community and the UN system should push into the kind of ceasefire where the civilians will be respected, and also to restart the process of political solution of this conflict, of this problem. I think that we need a real political solution based on the recognition of the right of Palestinian people to their freedom, to their autodetermination, to their state, independent state. I think that we will really reach a real peace in the region if we recognize the right of the Palestinian people to the state, and this will be a recognition of the international community decisions, of the legal international decisions. One last thing is about education and awareness raising. I think that we are not really investing enough in the prevention and in the education issues. Really, we need to invest in the advocacy issues, in awareness raising, in education, on human rights education, citizenship education. We need really to mobilize the school systems, media, and all the actors, communities, local communities, who can really play a major role in prevention, protection, and promotion of migrants' rights. Thank you.
Abdelbasit, you have underlined the base of the matter, which is all forms of human rights that unfortunately are being violated, I would say, and not taken into consideration. I will ask the Zoe if she has anything to add to conclude this webinar with.
I just want to bring to your attention that UNODC has published a special report on conflict and trafficking in persons. And as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, in times of crisis, crime thrives. And we saw an increased number of victims of trafficking in the flows in regions affected by the Syrian situation at the time and the Rohingya crisis. So it's important to keep this in mind, that there are links between how conflict affects trafficking in persons.
I thank you so much. As I see no more comments, and that we've gone basically 1.5 hours on this webinar. I would like to thank all the speakers and the guests, and promise we will take up this matter in the future, in the near future, from different angles involving, as I said, the governments, the international organization, the multilateral system, the civil society, and the, of course, without omitting our friends and partners, the diplomats, and the media. I would like to thank you so much and wish you all the best, and wish this planet a better shape and better future. Happy UN Day, despite all of that, and take good care of yourselves.